that in each and every one of our lives, we all talk about and we all want to be a successful person. Amen? Even as children, even growing up, even many of us that watch basketball or football or baseball or hockey or tennis, whatever sport it is or whatever it is that we watched, we all thought that the athlete or the person that was on TV, no matter what their story was, no matter what their background was, that when they made it on TV and they signed a multi-million-dollar contract or made so much money per movie that they made, we all thought within ourselves and said, that is a successful person. Even on Oprah today, Oprah will invite certain people on her show and do the whole show with that person and talk to that person and do an interview with them and speak to them and tell them and go over their whole life story. And at the end of the story, we've all heard them say, now I am a multi-millionaire. I took my life back. I didn't allow the things that happened in my life. Now I'm a better person because I have so much money. I don't have a need. I don't have a want. I'm just perfect. I live in a perfect house. I have the perfect friends. I have the perfect husband. But not one time do they say I serve a perfect God. But yet and still we'll watch Oprah and say, man, that is a successful story. Success, this word success, I looked it up in the dictionary, and the first thing that I seen is it is a noun, meaning that it describes a person, place, or thing. Even in the dictionary, it tells us that a success, when we see success or we see someone that is successful, the first thing is we point out what they have on, what they drive, what school they went to. Whatever it is that we see, it describes them by what we see that tells us that they are successful. Amen? Here it is. Webster's dictionary describes the word successful. It says this. It says the word successful is achievement, fame, or triumph. Now, and Webster says this, that you are a success, that if you triumph or you achieve what you set out to do. That is what Webster says, that is a success. But can I say this? There are a lot of people in this world and in our lives today that say that we look at and they say that they are successful. How many of you know that a lot of them sit in their homes at night with a handful of sleeping pills saying, I just want to just take my life away. This is just not worth it. Because when we see them on TV, we see success. We see what we think that is success. Even when we go and look at houses, me and my wife and my children, we'll look at houses and we'll look at those houses and we'll say, man, whoever that lives in that house, that's a successful person. Man, they have it going on. Man, if we could only live in that house. But how many of you know that if you could only go behind the doors of that house and you see the family that are torn apart, the kids don't care about the parents could care less about the kids. The house is a wreck, but yet and still we look at the nicely manicured yard, how the bushes are all trimmed and how the kids look like that they respect the parents. The parents look like that they love the kid, but yet and still at night, they don't even talk to each other. They don't even watch TV together. Yet and still, the only time that family is together, that when they leave to drop their kids off at school or drop one another off at work. That's sad. That's a sad place to be, but yet and still, we look at that and we say, man, they are successful. But let's look at this word right here, failure. A lot of us, we don't train our kids to be failures. We don't tell our kids, hey, I want you to grow up and be the biggest failure that you could possibly be. Tell you what, don't go to school, drop out, just become the biggest loser that you can. But yet and still, when we paint a picture of someone that is successful, we're actually training our children to become failures. Can I show you? Because we allow our children to only see the outside of a successful person.
Yes.
We never allow them to see the inside of one. So really, honestly, what we're doing is we're training them to be a failure, because what they're after, or what they're running after, is the outside of what we see. How many of us in here would tell our kids, I want you to be the next president of the United States, but nobody really knows Obama right now?
Yes.
Nobody really knows the fight that he goes through. Nobody really knows the unhappiness that he may have. Yeah, it's cool to be the president of the United States. Everybody would like to be the president of the United States, but nobody wants to talk about the struggle of being the president of the United States. But yet and still we tell our kids, don't be a failure, but be a success. But here it is. In chapter 12, we find Jesus at the beginning of this chapter right here, we find Jesus speaking to the multitude and the Pharisees and his disciples. And in the verses 1 through 5, we find Jesus here. The first couple of verses in this chapter, we find Jesus speaking to them about be careful of what you do. Because if you read this, really, I can tell you right here, verse 1 says this: in the meantime, when there were gathered together an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trod one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, first of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Well, let me say this. What Jesus was saying is hypocrisy. What that is someone that shows the outwardness of being a religion, or shows that, hey, I'm faithful, I believe in God. Can I make it practical? Can I say it like this? You know them people that tell you ought to be going to church, you need to be praising God, you need to give God thanks, but yet and still you never see them in church? But yet and still you never see them in their word, but they're constantly trying to tell you how you should be living, but they're not matching up to what they say? Well, then that's what Jesus is talking to the scribes and the Pharisees. He's telling his disciples and the multitude, beware of people like that. Because these people right here, what Jesus says, right after that in verse 2, he begins to talk about and say that certain things that you do in the darkness will soon come to the light. How many of you believe that past sins or present sins that you're doing right now, you think, yeah, it's 12 o'clock at night, nobody sees me going to the club, nobody sees me creeping from house to house, nobody sees me cussing, nobody sees me smoking, nobody sees me doing drugs, but as long as nobody sees me, it's all right. Nobody will never ever find out about it, because I'm only doing it in the presence of my house, or I'm going to the other side of town to do whatever it is that I'm doing. But how many of you know that eventually that sin will come to the light? Can I say this? Sin loves light. I don't know what it is about sin. Sin, check this out. Sin starts off in the darkness. It starts off as a thought first. First of all, it starts off as, you know something, it's Saturday night, I'm bored, I ain't got nothing to do. What harm is it going to do for me to go to this club tonight? I'm married, I got a wife, I'm not going to take nobody home, I'm not going to sleep with nobody there, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to do no drugs. All I want to do is just go out tonight, have a good time, get up, put my clothes on, and go to church. I'm not hurting nobody, I'm just going to be all by myself. First of all, it starts off like that, just with the thought. And then all of a sudden, have you ever got that phone call that you really didn't want, but you was really waiting on it? I know that don't make sense. That almost sounds like an oxymoron, how you can not want a phone call, but you really want it to come. But yet and still, you get that phone call, and that was just the phone call you was waiting on. You know how you have those friends that will tell you stuff? That's that one friend that you can't wait to call you, the one that talks you into doing everything that you don't want to do, because your whole thing is, if it don't work out, I'll blame them. Well, that friend begins to tell you, dog, listen, man, it ain't going to hurt you to go out tonight. Man, look, this is how the enemy works. This is how it first starts off. The enemy will begin to tell you, man, just go tonight, man. You don't know who you might speak to. You could tell anybody about the Lord at the church, at the club tonight, and you could take them to church. And we, can I say this? And we dumb enough to say, you know something, you right. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go tonight. So in our mindset is, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go tonight. All I'm going to do, I'm just going to go and witness tonight. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to witness. I'm not going to try to enjoy myself. I'm not going to try to talk to nobody. I'm just going to go to witness. But you're going to witness without a Bible. How is it that you can go and witness to somebody with no Bible?